We tend to assume that human consciousness is a byproduct of biology, that the mind is an emergent property of the physical brain. But in esoteric psychology, the causal arrow points the other way. The physical human body, along with its psychological traits, is not the source of a person's identity. It is merely a conditioned response apparatus. This apparatus is deliberately constructed by what esotericists call the soul or ego. Its sole purpose is to serve as an instrument, allowing the soul to anchor itself in the physical plane and gather tactile, material experience. This gathering of experience follows a strict evolutionary trajectory across 3 sequential stages: individualization, initiation, and finally, identification. Our focus here is on the critical transition point between the first and second stages. We are looking at the exact moment when the mastery of the individual personality gives way and the soul begins to assume direct control. From this perspective, the biological and psychological form is a temporary, self-imposed prison. The soul builds it, uses it to interface with the material world, and ultimately must learn how to dismantle its grip and escape it. To reach the peak of that first stage, individualization, requires producing a highly integrated, dominant personality. This is a person who wields a massive amount of personal will, intellect, and ambition over their immediate environment. This photograph illustrates the historical manifestation of this peak personality. The dictator, or the supreme individualist, represents the absolute zenith of the lower, separative self's power on Earth. But despite its dominance, this state is an evolutionary dead end. The consummate personality is entirely self-contained and entirely severed from the broader group consciousness of the higher soul. To move past this dead end and trigger the next stage of evolution, initiation, the individual faces a massive structural problem. They must construct a deliberate energetic bridge spanning the gap between their lower concrete mind and the higher spiritual realms. In esoteric texts, this structure is called the Antahkarana. You cannot grow this connection biologically. It must be forged purely through the projection of focused mental energy. Spiritual progression, therefore, is not a passive guarantee. It is a precise engineering project, demanding the conscious manipulation of esoteric energies to literally bridge the gap between 2 distinct states of being. This diagram illustrates the esoteric anatomy underlying the physical form, what is known as the etheric body. This invisible network of energetic vectors, or nadis, is the true actuating power operating behind the human nervous system. The soul controls this etheric network through 2 primary anchor points. The first is the thread of life. This energy is anchored directly in the physical heart, distributing the raw life principle throughout the entire body via the bloodstream. The second contact point is the thread of consciousness. Anchored in the head, near the pineal gland, this node acts as the directive center, ordering physical activity by manipulating the brain and nervous system. The degree to which the soul can actually steer the biological machine depends entirely on how firmly these 2 threads are established. This energetic grip correlates directly to what esotericists call the age of the soul. What modern medicine observes as the central nervous system is, from this perspective, merely the dense physical shadow cast by this dual-thread etheric control system. Keeping our attention on this diagram, the visualization now focuses on a 3rd major node in the etheric body, the spleen. This acts as the gateway where raw environmental vitality, planetary prana, enters the human system. Notice the intersection. The horizontal influx of prana crosses the vertical life stream descending from the heart. This literal cross of matter inside the body is the exact point where the subconscious collective life of the physical cells meets the conscious life of the individual. These 2 crossing streams merge and drop downward, pooling in the solar plexus region. For the average person, consciousness becomes trapped in this pool, resulting in highly reactive, astral-driven, emotional behavior. To progress, the advanced initiate must perform a deliberate act of will. They have to draw these pooled energies out of the solar plexus and pull them upward along the spinal tract. Spiritual advancement requires physically redirecting the body's autonomic energetic currents through conscious, focused intent. This schematic moves us from the physical body to a conceptual map of human consciousness. It reveals a massive gap separating the lower triangle, vitality, emotion, and concrete mind, from the upper triangle, the higher spiritual triad. The apex of that lower personality structure is the concrete intellect, and it is from this exact point, the conscious mind, that the bridge must originate. Esoterically, the lower mind serves a dual function. It processes daily logistical life, but it also possesses the capacity to receive abstract ideas and consciously build tangible thought forms. The actual construction of the Antahkarana happens when the individual focuses their mind in deep occult meditation, projecting a concentrated stream of mental energy across that void, reaching toward the intuition. This projection establishes a reciprocal vibration. It creates a lighted way, linking the two distant shores of consciousness into a single continuous circuit. The specific method used to project this energy, whether by crashing force, architectural building, or harmonization, depends entirely on which of the 7 rays governs the individual's soul. The intellect is often framed as a barrier to enlightenment, but here it is the essential building block. You must fully develop the concrete mind before you can use it to reach the intuition. When the bridge is completed, the initiate undergoes the 3rd initiation. A massive influx of energy strikes downward, directly into the physical mechanism. Physiologically, this event raises the Kundalini fire, instantly burning away the protective etheric webs that previously separated the body's various force centers. Psychologically, the individual achieves full, waking continuity of consciousness. They can now operate across the physical, emotional, and mental planes simultaneously, without a break in awareness. At this stage, the separative ray of the personality is entirely extinguished, absorbed by the dominant ray of the soul. The person becomes, in esoteric terms, a true man of God. The 3rd initiation marks the end of the soul's long imprisonment in matter. The biological machine no longer dictates experience. It acts strictly as an instrument of divine will. But this is not the end of the journey. The final and most mysterious stage of spiritual evolution is identification. Here, even the distinct consciousness of the individualized soul begins to fade. Ancient esoteric texts refer to this state using the doctrine of negation, describing it only by what it is not. Because human language is inextricably bound by form, it fails completely when trying to describe a state that is entirely formless. It presents a profound paradox. It is a state of no thing and non-ego, yet it perfectly preserves all the gathered knowledge and experience acquired over the individual's long evolutionary cycle. The highest adepts in history demonstrate this liberation. Having reached this state of formless being, they can manifest at will into the physical world. The terrifying isolation and emptiness that an initiate experiences right before reaching this stage is recognized as the final illusion. It is the last dying remnant of what esotericists call the heresy of separateness. The ultimate destiny of human consciousness is not the glorification of the individual self. It is the complete, joyous absorption of that self into the macrocosmic life. It is the moment the drop finally realizes it has always been the ocean.